This video is titled, Is White Supremacy Making a Comeback? And it's because I'm genuinely curious. I really hope it's not. I really thought that it died and should stay dead. But we're seeing a little bit of traction, I think, in the way of people are talking loudly about it. Like, for instance, you've got people on Jubilee. They did a surrounded debate, which I've been on one of those debates before. I was on the surrounded Lila Rose versus 20 pro-choice. And I'm pro-choice. And obviously, look at me. Although, you know what? Now that I say that, you should see how many of the MAGA people on this Jubilee clip I'm going to show you. You should see how many of them, they look like they'd be on the left. You know what I mean? Like, one of them's clearly gay. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, 22 is that the one that's gay, I'm just going to say that they're gay because they are, and that's totally cool. I don't have a fucking issue. But the other people in that circle you're sitting with that are on your team, they have an issue with you. Because one of the other guys literally in the debate says, well, gays should just be straight because he's a Christian fundamentalist. But let's stick to the topic at hand, white supremacy. Because you have here this blue-eyed, blonde-haired girl sit there and literally go, what's wrong with xenophobic nationalism? I think it would be better for the country. It's like, oh my God, bitch. Do you even know what xenophobic nationalism means? And then I, kind of not dug in on her, but, let me go to her X, because you know she was on X, and then her Instagram or whatever. And you know what? Her heart's with you. You know what I'm saying? She's a Nazi. She's a white supremacist. And just talking about it, though, as though it's so normal. And that is what's not good. And that is what's scary. And that's what people need to call out. Like Sam Cedar, when the way she started speaking, if I were him, I would have said, oh, wait, so you're a white supremacist. Anywho, so check out this clip. Let's watch.
What's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
To be xenophobic nationalism is better.
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Which, do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is the dominant culture?
Based on European and Christian values and identity. That is the dominant culture.
White Christian.
It's rooted in European identity.
White. So your argument is
that has been the dominant culture.
Just to be clear.
And we're not letting people assimilate to that. We're saying you should keep your culture, and this is why our culture is so divided.
Your argument is that Trump is good for those who want a dominant white European culture.
I mean, that is what America is. It's rooted in European identity and Christian values. That's what it has been. Would you really disagree with that? What is it then, if that's not the identity of America?
Well, I think the identity of America...
For the majority of time, America's been a country. You don't think that's been the identity?
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been, for better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah, maybe since the 1960s. Even then, even we had this idea of a melting pot literally means assimilation too. It means melting. It means you're assimilating to the dominant culture. Is that not what melting means?
No, it doesn't
mean. And now
mean
instead we're saying there's something wrong with xenophobia.
Dominant culture. No. I mean, look, I got to be honest with you, you and I have a fundamental disagreement. We will never see eye to eye on this. It's a choice. And I think what you're expressing, though, is really what the Trump movement at its heart is about. And I think that's problematic.
I disagree. I don't think Trump's anywhere close to being a Christian nationalist. That's ridiculous. Trump's basically a Democrat from 15 years ago when it comes to social issues.
So you don't think that he's conservative enough for you?
Oh, definitely. Nowhere close. No.
He's not xenophobic enough for you?
No, he's trying to pour a bunch of H-1Bs. Are you kidding?
Right. Oh, so you want to get them out too? Yeah. No, I think you're making my argument for me.
I would have absolutely 100% just called her what it is. Like, call it what it is. Like, just so I'm clear, you're a white supremacist. Okay, so that's why you have these feelings, because you don't like people that aren't white. Got it. Okay. White supremacy is so fucking stupid. It's just such a farce. You know what I mean? Like, it's so dumb. Like, we all know that no one race is better at this or that. Like, people keep breaking boundaries all the time, and it's just like, and also, who gives a shit? A lot of things go to the individual, okay? Like, get fucking over it, white people. Also, what are you so mad about? They are so pissed off, but no one's really taken anything from you. Like, no one's taken anything from you. You haven't lost any rights. Women have. You're on your way to trying to get rid of gay marriage. I mean, come on. What rights have you lost? What have you lost? And then another, big outlet, the Joe Rogan Experience. Now, here's the thing, right? Like, I don't know how I feel about Joe Rogan. I do stand-up comedy. I like Joe Rogan. I find him entertaining, and he used to be like just one of those dudes who like seemed very curious about everything, and he would have like legit guests on and good conversation, and he didn't lean any one way, and for a while he did. He was like a Bernie dude, and that I thought that was awesome, because he just seemed like a regular dude, like one of the people. And now, talk about shifting gears. I mean, now he is platforming and championing for people that are white supremacists. Like, that they are. His best friend Elon is a fucking white supremacist, okay? If the Sikh Hiles, all right, you're a white supremacist. And he did it. It is. You are. Done. So, anyway, with Elon, he platforms him. And I love Elon. The last time he was on the Joe Rogan Experience, he had this little clip, and let's watch it. He said that the West's problem is empathy, or like our weakness or something was empathy.
The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. The empathy exploit. They're exploiting a bug in Western civilization, which is the empathy response. So, and I think empathy is good, but you need to think it through and not just be programmed like a robot.
Yeah, I mean, it's really come as quite a shock to me that there is this level of really hatred and violence from the left. I always thought the left, or Democrats, were supposed to be the party of empathy, the party of caring, and yet they're burning down cars, they're firebombing dealerships, they're firing bullets into dealerships, they're just smashing up Teslas. Tesla is a peaceful company. We've never done anything harmful. I've never done anything harmful. I've only done productive things. There's some kind of mental illness thing going on here, because this doesn't make any sense. I think there are larger forces at work as well. I mean, I don't know who's funding it and who's coordinating it, because this is crazy. I've never seen anything like this.
Funny how that works. He thinks it's a weakness, and that's what he wanted to prey upon, is the left's weakness, which is our empathy. I'm going to tell you right now, dude, I'm a very empathetic person, and I mean, I'm not losing my empathy for humans, but I'm definitely able to drop it for a second. Not gonna lie, because these people are out there. They're really, really evil. They're awful. And we should just call them what they are. Just call them what they are. Like, when people talk like that, just go, oh, are you a white supremacist? You know what I mean? Like, call it what it is. None of this, like, bullshit politics around it. No. White supremacy should not be politicized. It should just die. Because you had Joe Rogan on his show, Daryl Cooper, the historian who likes to rewrite history, on. And he's a smart man. He's totally smart. He's well-read. He knows the history. But he takes the history and he puts just this little bit of empathy on it. on Hitler's story and on his childhood and on him and what he went through in the first 4 years of World War One that he fought, and all the conditions and all the he's trying to make Hitler human to you so that you can understand why someone would go to the lengths he did and have the overreaction, is what Joe Rogan called it, that Hitler had.
When did Hitler start going after the Jews?
You mean in terms of
Like, rhetoric?
the war? So yeah, like if you take him at his word in Mein Kampf, which is, it's a piece of political propaganda, that he wrote as a sort of a politician in Germany in 1924, and so you have to take it with sort of a grain of salt. But it's also one of the few sources we have, like. And given his audience at the time, he probably didn't have a lot of reason to make this part up. Is that he had been from like small town Germany, right? And he was from a middle class family. His father was a civil servant, respectable people, and nationalism back then was very much like a middle class ideology, and the middle class people, nationalists, would complain about the workers and the proletariat, how they all want to be socialists and none of them have any national feeling and everything. And Hitler really didn't grow up with any really even knowledge of the Jews. He says his father, he never heard him say the word, and if they had any in the small town that he lived in, like they were apparently well assimilated because he didn't know about them. And so then he moves to Vienna when he's a young adult, and there's a lot of Jews in Vienna. And he starts to, he's at the bottom of society now. He's literally living in shelters. He's hungry all the time. He's like down with the underclass after having grown up in the middle class. And so he's starting to get a look at what the German people, the German masses, that he's like sort of as a child and a young man has like worked up this deep sense of like nationalistic fervor. He's actually getting an up close look at the underclass in Vienna, and what he sees is not particularly impressive, which is often the case when you can have sympathy for and want to lift up the underclass in any society, but the reason you want to do that is because they're often living degraded lives in degraded circumstances. And so he gets an up close look at this, and he doesn't like what he sees. And he says in Mein Kampf that it really caused him like a moral crisis, and an ideological crisis. He's like, are these the German people? Like, really? This is what we're talking about? And then he says, and this is the way he relates it. He says it was actually the key that unlocked everything else for him, is that he would say he realized, we could say he came to believe that yes, these German masses, they are in a sorry state right now, but the reason for that is that they're being manipulated by the Jews, by the Jewish press, by the Jews who own the theaters and put out the films and whatever else. All of that, they're being manipulated and corrupted by these people. And so for him, it became like I think, he had a lot of the same explanations and reasons you would hear from any anti-Semite then or now, banking and whatever. Like all those things were like in there. But I think the thing that gave it emotional valence for him is that his anti-Semitism was what allowed him to love the German people. Like it was like the only way for him that he could get around the revulsion he was feeling and actually being up close with the German underclass. Is he excused their faults by blaming Jews, and so his sense of love for his people. And I mean, look, Hitler's one of those guys. I noticed this when I was reading all the Jim Jones books and stuff, which I think I read probably all of. They're not very good. Some of them are interesting, like they're good reads, but you can't help but notice, especially after you've read several of the books, that the authors just cannot help but be like cynical and turn it into a polemic on every page. Like even the thing Jim Jones or Hitler did as a child, they have like negative editorializing to it and everything. And it's like, it's and so I think that like people who knew Hitler before World War I, and we have like memoirs and interviews with people who did know him pretty well. They say pretty much unanimously, like we never heard him mention the Jews back then. And this is the period in Vienna when Hitler says his anti-Semitism was developing and he was figuring these things out. And what I think was probably going on, like my read of it, at least up to this point, is that his anti-Semitism, just like a lot of people in Europe at the time, was theoretical and abstract. You know what I mean? Like the Jews had never. You got to remember, like the Russian Revolution, all of the things that people like Hitler would associate with the Jews, like none of that stuff had happened yet. Like he might not like them, you know, he might think that, whatever, all the stereotypes that go along with him, but it was just sort of an abstract thing that it wasn't dangerous, right? But then the First World War happens, and, you know, it's really impossible for us today to understand the level of just trauma and devastation that war had on, I mean, the European countries that were in, or all the countries that were involved. I mean, it was, you're talking about a war where, you know, for several Olympic Games afterwards, there were whole sports that like France and Germany just didn't participate in anymore because they didn't have the people for it. You're talking about massive chunks of the young male population being killed out there, right? And you take a guy like Hitler, who volunteered early, like right away, and he survived the whole 4 years of the war. And you think about him as just an example of this generation of people who spent like their most formative young adult years in the trenches. I mean, in constant terror of doing things that, I mean, forget about just like the physical discomfort of living there. I mean, you're in the mud, you're covered with lice and fleas all the time. So is everybody else. You're, especially later in the war, you're like living off of starvation rations if you're a German or an Austrian. And from Germany eastward after, you know, if you go back and think about what the map of Europe looked like in the year 1900, it didn't look anything like it looks now. It was basically like just a few big chunks. You know, you had France, you had Germany, the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and then you had the Russian Empire. And there were a few like Spain and the Balkans and stuff, little things going on. But really it was just a few giant empires controlled everything from the Pacific Ocean in East Russia all the way over to the coast of France, right? And everything east of Germany in 1917 and 1918, those governments literally evaporated. They went away. And so, you know, you get to the immediate post-war period after these guys have just gone through this unbelievably harrowing experience. You know, their lives have been defined by violence for years, you know, at this point. And all of a sudden there's just state collapse everywhere from Germany to Siberia. And you literally have, you know, private militias, groups of veterans, communist militias, like they're running cities, they're running the streets, like having running gun battles in the streets of, you know, of Berlin and Munich. And this goes on for a few years, you know, just total social and economic chaos. And so you're talking about like the 4-year war, but then a few more years after that. So you're 18 when you get in, and 1914, now it's 1923 when things kind of start to stabilize, and, you know, you've been at this for like the first 9 years of your young adulthood, right? This is the world that you live in. And it's when you try to think of, you know, I talked about like Uday Hussein being brought to watch torture sessions or something. I mean, this is not exactly that, but it's an experience that like we really have no way to relate to. And if you grow up in that world, especially when, you know, if you look at like what happened in Russia, 1917, the Russian Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, and they won. You know, they actually took over the Russian state and created the Soviet Union. You know, it lasted long past the lives of anybody who had fought in World War I for the most part. And so people saw that, and they took the lesson both from World War I itself, but also from the aftermath and the revolutions that happened. The lesson they took is that violence can accomplish our goals, you know, and whatever we do to accomplish those goals, as long as we survive, people accept it eventually. You know, Roosevelt normalized relations with the Soviet Union in 1933 when Stalin was literally still clearing bodies from the millions of people he starved in the Ukrainian Holodomor, and in Kazakhstan, another million people. And like at that time is when, and we knew it was going on, obviously. And yet Roosevelt normalized relations with Stalin, and people got over it. Just like with Turkey. Turkey does the Armenian genocide, and it's condemned at the time. They were on the other side of the war and everything. But a couple years later, look, Turkey's an important, strategically placed country, in the world, and we kind of need them on our side. And so, sorry, Armenians, but, get over it. And so people took that lesson, is that violence will accomplish our goals. And as long as we accomplish them and survive, people will get over it,
Oof.
Are we fucking kidding me? Are you joking? Because he's not the only one that went through 4 years of World War I. There were hundreds of thousands of others in that war. They didn't go on to want to eradicate all the Jews. That's the most ridiculous type of justification or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But I will say that he does that a lot. That's his whole thing. He tries to empathize and humanize Hitler for you so that you can kind of get behind him and therefore maybe get behind the message he was trying to send. Fuck that. He also sits there and talks about the rallies that Hitler did, and he was like, those rallies where he was talking about exterminating Jews, those, they make it seem like he was doing that in the town square and blah, blah, blah. No, he was doing that for a private group of Nazis. It was the inner circle. Are you fucking kidding me? First of all, we know he did that shit out in the public. And secondly, if he did it just for, the closer knit group, that makes it okay.
Important to know, too, that, it's not like Hitler was going and giving big speeches at City Square in Berlin, going on and on and on about how we're going to kill the Jews. And the German people said, right on, let's go do it. That was the speeches that are out there where he is talking about the Jewish question, almost all of those are internal Nazi party, rally speeches, they're not him. He had to be careful about that. In 1938, which is pretty far down the line, when Kristallnacht happened, it was kind of a nationwide pogrom against the Jews in Germany that was launched primarily by Goebbels, the propaganda minister. But there was outrage in the German cities. People in Berlin, a lot of the places were outraged by what was going on. And Hitler had to actually get on the phone with Goebbels and say, cut this shit out. This is not good. Not because he loves the Jews all of a sudden, obviously, but because this is bad propaganda. People are not going for this. And that was the year before the war started, And so these are just nuances that, that become pretty obvious when you just remind yourself that you're just talking about people. They're just people.
No. Daryl Cooper, very smart guy. I'm not saying he's dumb. He's not dumb. He's twisting it. He's trying to rewrite it just a little bit. Don't let him do that. But Joe, because the thing is, too, is he also thinks, when people cover horrible people who did horrific things, they always want to, he says, when people write books about these people, they paint it in the opposite way, right? Where this person is just horrible. Everything they ever did was horrible. Even the things they did as children were horrible.
Hitler's one of those guys. I noticed this when I was reading all the Jim Jones books and stuff, which I think I read probably all of. They're not very good. Some of them are interesting, they're good reads, but you can't help but notice that the authors just cannot help but be cynical and turn it into a polemic on every page. Even the thing Jim Jones or Hitler did as a child, they have negative editorializing to it and everything. And it's
almost like it's an obligation. If you're going to cover a horrific figure, you have to look at things that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But here's the thing, is that we all, a lot of us who have read books about Hitler or whatever, we know that he was an artist before, we know about his childhood. I'm not going to lie, growing up, I never heard a whole lot about Hitler before he became Hitler. Do you know what I'm saying? He became Hitler once he decided we're going to take out the Jews. This is the Hitler that we're talking about. Because quite frankly, the art he did before and him and his child, none of that fucking matters because of what you became. I don't give a fuck what you did before. I don't understand why you would need or to have empathy for a person like that. No. So, no. You can, when you cover something that's horrific or someone that is horrific, if it comes off as horrific, maybe that's just because that's what it is and that's what they were. I understand that you shouldn't cover, I understand wanting to have things covered with neutrality. Is that a word? Did I just, yeah, maybe I whatever, anyway. But I know you want it covered with no feeling, like don't give, but he does. It's just with a little bit of empathy and humanization, where really I don't know why you would put that there. So white supremacy, I don't know if it's on the rise, if you know what I mean. I hope not. You have to stop it when you see it. Like that whole group in Ohio that showed up. Those white supremacists that came out and they had their little rally. Are you kidding me?
Released by Evendale police shows the moments an officer interacted with a neo-Nazi group after that demonstration over 75 near Lincoln Heights.
There's been a lot of discussion, obviously, about this incident since it happened 11 days ago on February 7th. So you're about to see the officer on the overpass first ordering the white supremacist group to get into the U-Haul and leave the bridge when counter-protesters then erupt. Later, you could see the same officer walk up to the U-Haul outside of a Laughlin local schools building shortly before kids were about to be released from class that day. Here's the exchange now between the Evendale officer and the neo-Nazi group in the U-Haul, and the one man not wearing a mask you're about to see asking if he can go back and pick up his service dog where the protest happened on the overpass on 75.
You mean to tell me you...
We're trying to figure out a plan to get that. Yeah, I don't know if we've got to get him an Uber or something. That's probably the best bet, I'm guessing. I don't think anybody knows about. There's a dog. If the dog in there is cool with, if the dog is in there is cool with me driving it to you guys, I can go and get it. But there's a dog in there. I don't know.
Yeah, we need to get. He's my service animal. That's why I really need to get him. But
get you an Uber. Let's go. Here,
get your mask on. Let's go. I don't give a my face right now.
Just take take that black that shirt off.
Thank you.
I got in the driver's seat of the car with the dog bite me, you think? No. No? Okay.
No. He's a good dog. He'll sniff you to death.
You make sure you got your keys?
Hey.
Yeah, I got the...
You guys have, are you guys done?
Yeah, we're done.
There's no other...
No, we're just trying to go get the dog and get the Jeep and then we're out.
Yeah, we're gone. Let's go grab.
Are you kidding me? This is, and then when the community of black people showed up, to tell them to get fucked, the cops, they get the Nazis out of there and...
Stop. They're leaving. Let's get it. Hey, they're leaving. Back up. Turn around. You're in the middle of the street. Turn around. Yesterday. They gotta go. Can you please? I guess they did. Gotta go. Let's go. This is gonna get bad.
I agree. Thank you. We appreciate you guys. Sorry for making it harder.
All right, come on.
Hey, can I get an escort to my Jeep?
We'll worry about that once you guys go on the U-Haul, okay?
Okay, cool.
Hey, pull down the ramp. I'll meet you down at the bottom of the ramp.
All right, thanks. God bless you.
Yeah. Hurry up, guys. They're coming. Hurry up. Get it and go. Get it and go.
Look behind me.
Guys. Go. Get in and go. Get in and go. Go, guys. I'll meet you at the bottom of the ramp. Go.
Sometimes, here's the thing. BLM, that kid killed people, and he got off. And these motherfuckers showed up in a place they don't live to go ahead and protest on behalf of Nazism and white supremacy, which basically wishes death upon black people and anyone else who's not white. I think when that happens, why don't you just let the community take care of it? I absolutely 100% maybe have the cops there, but if I, let them, we let that kid Killed 2 people at a BLM protest. But if black people show up when these motherfuckers are in their neighborhood, they came to my neighborhood to wish death upon me, I'm gonna go beat their fucking ass. I just let it go. Let these motherfuckers learn their lessons. We protect these white men in this country way too much. We protect them so much that when they feel a little bit of discomfort, this is what happens. They have to start humanizing Hitler. They have to start talking about how xenophobic nationalism is better for the country as a whole. They're a bunch of white supremacists. That's it. That's it. That's what they are. That's what this is. If the sea hiles, okay? But at the same time, you just gotta also laugh at how stupid they are. Laugh at how stupid it is. And we know that. We know that. It's fine. You just gotta call it out. That's all. We just gotta call it out. We just gotta call it out. Don't let them normalize it. That's my fear. I don't want things to become normal, because this kind of thinking is not fucking normal. That girl from Jubilee, Sarah, whatever her fucking name is, you should go to South Africa, honey. That's where you belong. That's where a girl like you would feel at home. In apartheid, well, it's not apartheid anymore, but maybe if you could go back to 1993 South Africa, that is where you would feel very comfortable. 1980 whatever Africa, South Africa. That's where you belong. Jesus Christ. Man, you know what would be wild? I'm kind of stoned, so I just had the thought of like, God, wouldn't it be great if people could just pick the time period they want to live in, and then that way they could just like who they are now, just go to that time period and live out your wildest fantasies. And imagine if you asked a person that, if you could actually think about it, right? If you could live in any time period, to that woman, I would like to ask her that. You could live in any time period, what time period you want to go back to? As you. Not just as this, as a white woman. What? And I know she'll probably go back to the 50s or whatever. Okay, cool. So when your husband could beat your ass, or your husband could rape you, where you don't have a bank account, you don't have fucking options, you don't get to do what you want. Because girls like her have YouTube channels, I'm sure, and go on podcasts and this and that. Bitch, you couldn't do that then. What the fuck are you talking about? They're always wishing for things that they would hate to actually have happen to them. They are just comfortable with it being done to someone else. They think they're the exception, not the rule. Bitch, you're the rule. You're the fucking rule. Everyone's the rule. At some point, okay? Get the fuck out of here. Stupid. And then, Gavin Newsom. We had Gavin Newsom. He started a podcast. Gavin Newsom started a podcast called This is Gavin Newsom. And he had Charlie Kirk, Steve Bannon, and Michael Savage as his first 3 guests. His first 3 guests. Dude, what the fuck are you doing? What's happening? First 3 guests were white, male. One of them's definitely a white supremacist. 2 of them, really. I mean, really, I don't want to say Charlie Kirk is because I haven't. But, anyway. This is him pandering to that movement. Why? Because, one, I think Gavin Newsom's probably going to run for president, or try to. Fuck off. I don't think he should be. I don't even like him as governor, honestly. I vote blue, but fuck Gavin Newsom. Especially since watching these episodes of his podcast, because he's platforming them. He's not debating them. He's not going at it with them. He's not even really having conversation. He's stroking their egos and shit. Like with Charlie Kirk, he talks about how, and I want to play the clip, but he's such a bitch on YouTube that I can't, there's copyright. I can't, he won't let us do that. So fuck him. Anyway, but on Charlie Kirk, on the episode where he had Charlie Kirk on, he said,
last night, trying to put my son to bed. He's like, no, Dad, what time? What time's Charlie going to be here? What time? And I'm like, dude, you're in school tomorrow. He's 13. He's like, no. This morning, wakes up at 6 something. He's like, I'm coming. I'm like, he literally would not leave the house.
Did you let him take off school?
No, he did. Of course not. He's not here for a good reason. But the point is,
you canceled school for like 2 years. Once one day, it took 1 day.
The point is the point, which is you are making a damn dent.
Thank you.
Oh, my son, no BS, true story, Charlie. My son, wanted to stay up. He was so excited that you were going to be here and he wanted to stay home from school. Talking about how his fucking son is a fanboy for Charlie Kirk. It was just so gross. Leaves a bad taste in my mouth. He's such a career politician, and that's what we're seeing. This podcast is his career move into trying to become president or having something to fall back on when that blows up in his fucking face. That's what this is. Because I thought you had a state to run, not a podcast to run. I think that's it. I think white supremacy needs to not make a comeback. I think we need to call it out when we see it and when it's happening and realize that that is what this administration is moving towards. Okay? You guys might not think that, but that's at the end of the day. Look into Elon Musk, okay, and where he comes from. What his parents moved him to, what his entire family supports, and what his mindset was growing up, okay? Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, South Africa's not apartheid anymore. Yeah, but it was up until the age that he was 24. So he grew up with that mindset, okay? He is a fucking racist. He is an elitist. He's a psychotic billionaire who is fucking our country over. Really fucking the world over. Because he can. So, is white supremacy making a comeback? Leave your comments. I want to know. I'm not saying I'm curious. I want to know where do you live? Are you seeing stuff? It's just kind of sad just how open and casual people make remarks, and it's just oof, that's not good. We shouldn't be seeing regular stuff like that. This isn't regular, this isn't normal, and it shouldn't be. Let me know what you think, though. Well, that's this is white supremacy making a comeback video. Please subscribe, and we would both really appreciate it. Have a great day.